Hello there, I'm Autopsy and welcome to a video on proper rune use. This video focuses slightly more on Unholy than it does for Frost, but we will cover both of them. I'm gonna assume you have a basic understanding about how runes work in general, as well as how Frost and Holy work on a very basic level. Read latest tricks if you are unfamiliar with this. If you're a DK and you do not look at your runes when you use your abilities, that's a problem. As you can see in this video, I have my runes displayed rather prominently on my character. I honestly highly recommend it. It's not only the best way to play, but also the only way to play, in my opinion. It's pivotal, absolutely pivotal for min-maxing your runes properly. Using a simple rune mod, you can easily show it. I don't recommend using the default runes because they're very hard to see and react quickly to. I personally use magic runes. I strip away all the extra flair from it, so I just see the very basic setup. And I also make it obviously the focus of what I look at when I DPS, along with my cooldowns, etc. Now when it comes to Unholy, the priority list or rotation can be found in EJ, but I don't actually even know what EJ says because I don't use it. I don't have it memorized. They're more for sims than anything else. They're not that great. Practical DPS, I break away from what they say rather frequently. There's only really two rules that you need to know when it comes to DPSing as a DK. Number one is never let your runes cap. If you're capped already, use your runes. Number two, never let your runic power cap. If capped, use it. This is like the general list, so you want to follow 1 first and then 2 second, and that's it. Their importance is listed in 1 and 2 order. First and foremost is never letting your runes cap, and if you can help it, never letting your runic power cap. That's the way it works. There are some exceptions to this, we'll get to it later, but it's pretty set in stone. And the other rule, of course, that supersedes all of this is always be casting. You should always be hitting some ability, regardless. Now, let's look at the situation, assuming you're Unholy. Say you have this rune set up and this amount of runic power, say 40. What would the next ability you want to use be, keeping in mind the 2 rules you just learned? The answer is actually Festering Strike. If you use Scourge Strike or D&D, or any other single Unholy rune ability, it will only use that one Unholy rune. It won't use that Death Rune, because the way Death Runes work is they're prioritized lowest overall. If you use a Festering Strike, you'll use your Blood and Frost rune up, and now your Frost runes at the bottom there will start regenerating, because right now, in that situation, your Frost runes are capped. This might seem like only a small DPS gain, and ultimately it is, but these tiny little DPS gains add up to a lot in the end. So the more of these tiny little tricks, I guess, you can find out and use, the more your DPS will grow over time. In this case, it actually allows you to get off more runic power, rune abilities off in a whole fight, which is huge. So let's look at one more situation. In this case, we have a Blood Unholy Frost rune up, single one, and 95 runic power out of 100. In this case, the answer is Death Coil. The reason is that if you use any one of your rune abilities, you'll cap your RP. Since it can't go over 100. None of your runes are capped, so there's really no significant DPS loss you would see by throwing out a Death Coil. You should be careful, however, because depending on the situation, if your runes are regenerating and they're about to cap, if you throw a Death Coil, you will end up capping your runes. So that's something to be mindful of. In that case, you would want to throw a Festering Strike, or if your Unholy runes are about to cap and not your Blood and Frost, you would throw a Scourge Strike or Death and Decay or Dark Transformation, one of those single Unholy rune abilities. Again, you want to think about this in terms of preventing your runes from capping. As long as your runes don't cap, and preferably your runic power doesn't cap, you're still maintaining optimum DPS. There's no way around it. Death Coils, they trigger Runic Corruption, as I'm sure you know, which increases the rate your runes regenerate at. You have to keep this in mind when you consider which ability to throw. Rule number 2 tends to force you to weave in Death Coils as many times as possible without letting your runes cap. The general idea is that if your runes aren't capped, you should be trying to fit in a death coil in whenever you can. Otherwise, you will end up runic power capping very quickly and easily. As long as you think ahead and apply the above two rules, you should be fine. There are situations I can think of where you have a choice between which abilities you throw, and I don't think you should think about it in terms of what EJ says. You should try to use as many runes as you can as possible in that situation. 'Cause honestly, in the end, as long as you don't cap runes, it doesn't matter. Think about it, whatever uncaps you quickest, and that's what you should do, and that's ultimately what you'll see a biggest DPS gain from. As Frost, mind you, regular Frost, which is aimed at putting out as many obliterates with killing machines as possible. Holding on to obliterates is actually preferred. Although the above rune strategy for Unholy applies, they apply slightly differently. Using a Frost Strike causes a depleted rune to fully regenerate, which is called Runic Empowerment, the Frost version, instead of increasing the regeneration speed. That's an important thing that affects how you should think about your runes. So let's look at this case. You have a Death Rune and an Unholy Rune and nothing else, and you have a 40 runic power and no killing machine proc. And in this situation, you would do everything you could to avoid an obliterate. Since killing a machine procs off of auto attacks, there really is a benefit to waiting and praying for a proc. The ideal choice here would be to throw a Frost Strike, and if you still haven't gotten a proc, Horn of Winter, and if you still haven't gotten a proc, then obliterate. Like, you just want to try to do as many DPS gaining abilities that you would do anyway, except obliterate. The idea is that you just hope that you get that killing machine proc and then you use it. You also shouldn't be letting your runes or RP cap, mind you. You should always be casting something beneficial DPS wise. Waiting is not worth it in any way, shape, or form. Also, you want to avoid Frost Striking whenever you can if you have no runes depleted. Otherwise, your rune empowerment procs, your rune regeneration, will be completely wasted and you'll get nothing out of it. As I mentioned before, there are times when letting runes or runic power rot is beneficial. This is typically done in preparation for AoE heavy phases, or in the case of Spinal Deathwing, for Burning Tendon burns, assuming your guild actually needs to maximize their damage on the Burning Tendon. Thinking ahead to these types of phases is really critical for maximizing AoE DPS as well as DPS in general. Another case where I let my runes partially cap if I have to is in order to get a Dark Transformation off as quickly as possible, right when it falls off my pet. Mind you, usually I only let 1 or 2 of my runes cap and I draw the line there, because usually it's not that hugely beneficial. I'll go more into Unholy in future videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys got something out of this. There'll definitely be more to come. If you got something out of this, give this video a like, and I'll hopefully see you guys soon.